Grok Talk comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, granitegrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at granitegrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, therocknhcr.com. Grok Talk is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime, on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
Grok Talk. Grok Talk.
Next up from the podium is author, speaker, and activist Trevor Louden.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? Can you understand a real southern accent? Okay. Look, thanks for having me here. I'm going to say some very blunt truths today. It may offend one or two people, but I hope not to. I hope you take it in the spirit that it's intended, because I want you guys to win, because America's well-being is going to guard my country's security. You know, my country depends on you, as does every other Western country. Reagan said you should always start with a funny story, and I had an incident in Los Angeles a while back. I went up to a street vendor, I bought some food. The guy said to me, you have an accent, where are you from? I said, I'm from New Zealand. He said, well, where's that? I said, well, look, it's down by Australia. He said, where Arnold Schwarzenegger comes from. That's common core geography for you people. So, look, everybody always says to me, I've been touring your country for 4 years now, spoken to more than 400 audiences, but everybody always says, why do you care about the United States? I say there are two reasons. The first is gratitude. My country was saved from invasion by the Japanese in World War II by the massive sacrifice of your fathers and uncles and grandfathers at the battles of Guadalcanal and the Coral Sea and Midway. And that's a very strong memory, folks. The second reason is related, but it's more selfish. Ronald Reagan had it right. This is the last best hope for mankind. If freedom should fail in the United States, if you lose your constitution, your liberty, your economic dynamism, and your military superiority, all of which are in grave danger, the bad guys of this planet, I'm talking Russia, China, Iran, Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, North Korea, and their Islamic allies, they will carve up this planet amongst themselves. Now, if you're an ally of the United States right now, you are freaking out, because you, the president of this country, seems to love the bad guys a lot more than he loves the good guys. You know, your allies are looking at you and they think, well, what did your president do to Poland and the Czech Republic? One of his first acts of office was to cancel the missile shield that was supposed to protect them from the Russians. Then they saw him abandon Georgia to the Russians. Then when there was a genuine rebellion against the mullahs in Iran, when all this Iranian nonsense could have been put to bed, Obama did nothing and thousands were allowed to die. Then when the Communist Party of Egypt and the Muslim Brotherhood took out your ally Mubarak, Obama cheered them on. And now they're looking at the Ukraine, folks. And you have to remember what Napoleon said about the Ukraine. Whoever controls the Ukraine controls Europe. Whoever controls Europe controls the world. These are big stakes in the Ukraine, folks, and I understand why Americans don't want to get involved, but the fact is the Ukraine has a treaty signed in your Senate under Bill Clinton guaranteeing that country a protection in the event of Russian military aggression. They gave up their nuclear arsenal, folks, in exchange for an American promise. And now that they need it, where is it? So far, Obama has sent them a few $100 million of non-lethal aid and John Kerry. Who is John Kerry, folks? He's basically Jane Fonda with less testosterone. So, you have the Russians trying to re-establish the old Soviet empire. You have the Chinese threatening the Philippines and Japan. You have Iran threatening Israel. You have ISIS committing unimaginable atrocities in the Middle East. Would any of this be happening if you had a Ronald Reagan in the White House today? Thousands are dying, folks, because this country has twice elected an anti-American president. Elections have consequences. Now, you guys are going to be facing a very important choice today, because you're going to be endorsing a candidate for the presidency of the United States of America. And your endorsement carries weight. And I know that campaigns can live or die by the endorsement that you're about to give today. Now, I want to lay out, from an outsider's point of view, how I think that needs to go. I can't vote for you, I can't even vote here. But sometimes your neighbours can see your own situation a little bit more clearly, a little bit more differently, I better say, than you can see it in your own way. So for what it's worth, this is my opinion. See, you have a problem in this country. You have a Democratic Party that is no longer the party of Truman and JFK. It is the party of Richard Trumka and the unions. In 1995, Democratic Socialists of America and the Communist Party USA staged a coup inside the AFL-CIO. They kicked out the anti-communist old guard, Lane Kirkland and his friends, and they installed their Marxist member, John Sweeney, as president. And now their protege, Richard Trumka, runs it for them. They took over every major labour union, SEIU, AFSCME, NEA, United Auto Workers, you name it, they run it. 20,000 Marxists now control the unions in this country, and through the unions, they are controlling the Democratic Party. All of the major policy planks of the Democrats, Obamacare, immigration amnesty, the gutting of your military, the Iran deal, socialisation of student loans, normalisation of relations with Cuba, all of them came from the Communist Party. They were introduced into the unions, and the unions made them Democrat policy. 20,000 communists are right now dictating the policies that control the lives of more than 320 million Americans. And most Americans think that communism died 30 years ago with the collapse of the Berlin Wall. Unfortunately, folks, it's alive and well and working out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So the significance of this is this. The Democrats, if they get power again, they never intend to give it up. Never. They want a one-party state in America. So we don't have 20 years, we don't have 10 years, we have one election cycle to turn this around, folks. Now the ace in the hole that they are relying on to make themselves a one-party state is immigration amnesty. Eliseo Medina, the top guy in the amnesty movement, goes to the White House on a regular basis. Obama says he consults him before making any moves on amnesty. He is a Marxist, a member of Democratic Socialists of America, and a supporter of the Communist Party. I quote him in my book. I've got him on tape in front of a progressive conference in Washington, D.C. in 2009, saying this: passing amnesty is the number one priority of the progressive movement. We have to get citizenship and voting rights for our 11 million undocumented workers. And does he talk about compassion, reuniting families, helping the economy? All he said was this: in 2008, Latinos voted overwhelmingly for Obama and progressive candidates. If we stand by these people and get them citizenship and voting rights, they will stand with our movement. That will give us at least 8 million more Democratic Party votes. That will give us a governing majority, not just for the next few election cycles, but for the foreseeable future. In other words, forever. Think about it, folks. Mitt Romney lost by 2.5 million votes. You give the Democrats 8, 10, 12, 20 million more votes, there will never be another Republican president in this country, ever. It will be a one-party state controlled by the unions and the communists. This will not become like France or Germany, as Fox News tries to tell you. This will become like Venezuela pretty quickly and Cuba not long after. I'm saying this is serious, folks. Amnesty is the road to the one-party state. And I understand the economic arguments for amnesty. I'm a free market guy. And if all the illegals voted Republican, I'll tell you straight, Obama would have the biggest fence on the border you have ever seen. But they don't. They vote 80 to 90% Democrat. And if you want to sell your country out, you have to realise that if you go for amnesty, there will never be another conservative running this country, and the unions and their communist allies will run you for eternity. That's what you're facing, folks. So the only counter to that is the fact that there are over 50 up to 90 million evangelical Christians in this country, only 10 million of who actually vote. They voted for Reagan, a few of them voted for Bush too, but they haven't voted since. Now, a lot of libertarians don't really like reaching out to evangelical Christians because of the social conservative issues. But I'll tell you straight, people, can you win the next election without them? Can you do it? Because if you can, go for it. But I'm telling you straight, it's going to be very difficult, and if you blow it, your children will live in slavery in this land. That is what we are coming down to, folks. We got one chance at this, and we need every single ally we've got. Because we've got the media against you. You've got vote fraud against you. You've got the unions against you. You've got the wimp wing of the Republican Party against you. The conservatives, the libertarians need to work together, and they need to restore the constitution of this country. So the next presidential candidate must be a constitutionalist. They must be strong on amnesty, and they must be able to reach the conservative Christians of this country. Because if you don't have all those three planks, folks, you are almost destined to have Hillary Clinton or Pocahontas Warren or Julian Castro or Uncle Joe as your next president. And you will be facing an uphill battle that you're never ever going to win. So, I'm looking at the candidates today, and I know the two favourites that are before you now. I think, judging from my point of view, you are either going to endorse Rand Paul or Ted Cruz. And both of those are fine Americans, and both of them are constitutionalists. I would be happy with either of them in the White House, but you've got to look at which one is more likely to win, which one's got more money, which one is more likely to reach the evangelicals in this country, and which one is more hardcore on amnesty. Because those are the issues that are going to decide your future, folks. And I may be offending people here when I say that, but I want this country to succeed, and I'm not coming here to gild the lily or tell you half-truths. I'm coming here to tell you what it's like, people. You're facing a very, very important choice, and you have to win. Now, the other thing I will add is that you've got a very crowded field. And as people drop out, especially as the race gets tighter, a lot of your people, as your favourite drops out, people tend to spit the dummy and say, well, I didn't get my boy, so I'm going home. Can we afford that, folks? You know, this is war we're facing here. This is a wartime situation. This is not the old Liberal Republican, Democrat Republican game anymore. This is basically communists versus constitutionalists. And the constitutionalists have to win. So we've got to make sure our man or woman is a constitutionalist, they're strong on amnesty, and they can reach out to the broadest possible coalition. Now, one way they can do that is this, and I just want to add, we'll go back to 1976, because I think this illustrates where you are now. Back in 1976, you'd been losing your liberties, Republican, Democrat, for decades. And the people were pretty damn disgusted. But that year, a man came out of California who spoke of a shining city on the hill and peace through strength and liberty and the Constitution. And hundreds of thousands of people, just like you, loved Ronald Reagan's message. And they got into the GOP and they thought, we'll get behind Reagan, we'll get him the nomination, and we will be welcomed. And what did the Republican Party old guard, the Karl Roves and the John Boehners of the day, what did they think of Ronald Reagan, folks? They despised him. They hated him. Ronald Reagan was far too extreme to be elected. Ronald Reagan would destroy the Republican Party. Ronald Reagan was banned from Ohio in 1976 by that state's GOP, folks. And they just beat him. They gave the nomination to Gerald Ford, and Ford went up against Jimmy Carter. And Carter won. How did those Carter years work out, people? Interest rates up to here, gave away the Panama Canal, gas queues round the corner, gutted your military, Iranian hostage crisis, your second worst ever president, folks. Work that one out. But the really important point is this. The grassroots did not give up. They stayed inside the GOP. They took over the precinct committee positions, the township committees, the nominating bodies of the party. And when Reagan ran in 1980, this time they were ready, and this time they refused to take no for an answer. They got Reagan the nomination. He went up against Jimmy Carter, and he took him out 49 states to 1. Shame on Minnesota, people. 49 states to 1. Folks, the Iranian hostages were back on the first day. The interest rates went down. The taxes went down. The economy boomed. He rebuilt your military, and he rebuilt the pride in this country. And he took out the Soviet Union without firing a single shot. Any better president in the 20th century? Anyone even close? So why did you have a Reagan revolution, folks? Because for once, it was the grassroots who got to decide the candidate. Could there be a message for today? Well, right now, people, this country is Jimmy Carter on steroids. And you need Ronald Reagan on meth to turn this around, guys. You've got to go way beyond Reagan. You've got to gut your federal government and you have to restore your constitution. You know that. But how are you going to do it? Reagan was a genius. He could unite the social conservatives, the fiscal conservatives, the defence conservatives. He could inspire libertarians. He could bring the Reagan Democrats across. And he got the evangelicals voting in huge numbers. The great Reagan coalition. Well, right now, people, your base is very fractured. You may not have heard, but there's a bit of division in your base. Tea Party Republicans, Libertarians, First Amendment, Second Amendment people, Common Core people, rhinos, you've got a lot of division. Can you afford that, people? 1 year out from the most important election in American history, the most important election in world history, can you afford division? So this is what I recommend that the top of the ticket does. Whether it's Mr. Cruz or Mr. Paul or Donald Trump or Ben Carson or whatever, this is what I think they need to do. They need to bring the contenders into the cabinet and bring others into the cabinet and name your cabinet and run early. You imagine, say, Ted Cruz at the top of the ticket, ran Alan West on the VP ticket, Rand Paul, Secretary of the Treasury, and you can do whatever you like to the Federal Reserve and the IRS, Mr. Paul, carte blanche. Sarah Palin, Secretary of Energy, drill, baby, drill. Drill in your backyard if you want to. Scott Walker, where would he go? Secretary of Labour. Right to work in every state, folks. Bring Mike Lee out of the Senate. And all those federal lands out west that they think they own? Well, his job is to give them back to the states so they can mine them and farm them for the benefit of their people. And who would make a great Secretary of Commerce? EPA, you're fired. OSHA, you're fired. And some of you might not like this, but you bring John Bolton, Secretary of State. Yeah. And I knew there'd be a division on that one. But his job is to flip the bird to Mr. Putin and the Ayatollahs and to rebuild the Western Alliance. Who would make a great ambassador to the United Nations? No one. Ever. Dr. Ben Carson, Secretary of Health and Human Services. End the welfare culture, Mr. Carson. Restore dignity to the communities of this land. Trey Gowdy, Attorney General. Stick it to the vote fraudsters. I can tell you might not like every member of that cabinet, but I guarantee every one of you like at least one or two of them. Would that kind of team inspire you? And would it unify the base? Because everybody's getting something, right? The Libertarians get something, the Evangelicals get something, the Conservatives get something. And aren't you all Americans? Don't you all deserve representation in your own government? Yeah. So what I'm asking from you people is one more year of the hardest political work you have ever done. I know what this cost you. You put time and money and commitment into what you're doing. It's cost you money, time away from your families. You could be doing other things. The only people who really want to be in politics shouldn't be there. Right? But you are in politics because you know you have to be to defend your liberty. That's the only reason you do it. You're sane people. You'd probably be rather off playing golf or hunting ducks or something. But you are here because you make the effort to do something for your country, for your constitution, for your principles. Well, I'm saying to you, I want a year of the hardest work you've ever done, because the next year is going to decide the fate of not just this country, but my country. Not just your children, but my children. I can't promise you very much, folks, but I can promise you two things. If you do nothing, your children will live in slavery in this land. But if you give it everything you've got, people, for your country, your principles, your constitution, the very least I can promise you is the right to look your children in the eye and say, I did everything I possibly could. What is that worth to you guys? And if you win, and you can win, you will give your children not just the amazing country that you inherited, but one even greater. Is that worth fighting for, folks? So I want to say to you people, thank you so much for what you do for America, for my country, and for liberty. God bless America, God bless liberty, God bless the GOP, God bless all of you. Thank you.